Good day and good evening, and welcome back to, well, not welcome back, but welcome to Mogtomes stream with me, Chaiji, but you can just call me Kai. So, tonight, we start with, well, talking about what the Mogtome event is, what you can do with it, which includes, of course, how do you get started with it, what options do you have, talking about some of the more well-known efficient ways to approach it, and then we'll probably do some farming on stream. Now, real fun is that like 10 minutes ago, it looked like my connection cut just entirely for like, I don't know, a minute. So that was fun. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. Usually it doesn't, but knock on wood and all that. That said, hey Talima, hey Zarf, hey Shaq, hey Zelly, hey Ceros, hey Lana, hey Rust, hey Naomi, hey Agent Monica, hey Vince, hey Rogue Wolf, hey Tristan, hey Aradel, hey Kazdragoon, hey Jason. Hope you're all doing very well. Wasn't that big Melo's PSN being slow? Well, I mean, the reason why I know my connection cut is because I was out in the kitchen doing something. I come back and YouTube is like saying, like usually when I connect to like set up the stream, it says, looks like you're ready to stream. Like when it has a good connection. And I usually like close that speech bubble, but it was back, suggesting that the connection dropped and I reconnected. Oh, okay, Shaq. And then it started to complain about that the connection wasn't stable enough or strong enough, and it eventually solved, but it was really funny when YouTube said, your bitrate isn't high enough with the 8,000 that you have. We recommend that you have at least 7,000. Okay, I'll increase past the upper limit back down to negative and then get up to 7,000. Right then. Also, hey Agony, hope you're doing well. So, first, what is the Mogtome event? It's usually also referred to as Mughal Treasure Trove officially, but it's relatively often that it is shorthanded to just Mogtome event, and the items you get from it, the Mogtomes, which are tombstones with a Moogle on it. So, the way that you start, hey baby, hope you're doing well, is that if you talk with, and let me just go to one of them. If you talk with any one of the Moogles near the Aetheryte, like in the Aetheryte plazas in one of the 3 starting cities, these itinerant Moogles, like this guy, the first time you talk with them, they will offer you the Mogpendium. Either the first time you talk with them or the first time since this new Mogpendium was added to the game. Because it was something that they introduced like during the very tail end of Endwalker. Before that, the Moogle tombstones were more like, mainly there would be this on the duties that it applied to, and that was kind of it. But now they made it a little bit more involved. Now, when you have the Mogpendium, you can just consult it anyway. You can also ask the Moogle to show it to you, but if you go into Duty Collection, it'll be there. And you can just drag it from there to where you want it if you want it on your hotbars. Might be easy if you consult it often. Now, what can you use the tombstones for is any of all of these items can be purchased with them. A large amount of them are things you could get elsewhere. For instance, the Sea of Clouds riding map, I believe, can be acquired elsewhere through something in the Sea of Clouds. So not that interesting. Besides, the riding maps of the various zones increase your ground speed on a mount, not your flying speed, which means that if you can fly in that zone, and you mainly fly in that zone, then this item is useless. But some people will get them anyway, just for the sake of having them. They're gotten with hunt seals. There you go. Also some other items like this to help your chocobo, and some equestrian rolls and minions. Most of them, if not all of them, can, emphasis on the word can, be acquired through other means. The Skallic equipment this time around is from the drowned city of Scala, which is just a dungeon. So you could just, like, farm the gear there. Granted, you might not get the item you need in the first go, as it is a quote-unquote max-level dungeon. Unlike leveling dungeons, you don't get a guaranteed piece of equipment you can use. In leveling dungeons, when you complete it, you are just forcibly handed one piece of equipment from the dungeon that your current job can use. This is not the case for quote-unquote max-level dungeons, for instance, level 70 dungeons. I couldn't possibly explain to you why. I don't know, it just isn't. Also, hey Matthew, hope you're doing well. But with those out of the way, these strange treasure maps here are, as far as I know, unique to the Mughal Treasure Trove. So if you want these, this is the only way to get them. They, unlike normal treasure maps, can be stacked as many as you want. So you can just have like 30 of them and then just go to town. But you can only acquire them for Mogtomes, as it were. Another one is that mounts like the Elbsthorn and the Bomb Palanquin Horn are mounts from a Realm Reborn tribes. They usually have a few or all of these here. You can get these mounts by simply maxing out the reputation with those tribes, and you're good. But you can also get them here if you can't be bothered. And these Kamui 5s are... They're often there a few mounts from extremes, old extremes. So this can be a way to skip that. For instance, these are from Shinryu and Seiryu, respectively, so you can skip having to farm these. Given that it's a random drop, there's a very good chance that this is an easier way to get them than actually farming them. Notably because Seiryu has his mandatory cutscene, and I don't even know if Shinryu... I imagine Shinryu is soloable, but I think he also has like some cutscene shenanigans, so it might take a while. Have we properly pushed getting the Gwib? I haven't gotten to that yet. Again, some of these higher up things are a little bit more valuable. I believe this ballroom etiquette item for the /lean emote is from the... what's the name again? In Ishgard. The Ishgard Restoration, yes. The Firmament. So, if you have some of that currency, you might not need that. And if you run out of other things to get, you can always get MGP as well. Like, the stackable treasure maps and MGP cards are pretty much like the easy-to-pick defaults to spend your excess tomes, if you should ever have any. Among the items up here, though... As far as I know, only the Inferno Jacket and the Paisa Earring are unique to the Treasure Trove, and more importantly, they might not be here next time there's Mughal Treasure Trove. For those curious, usually there is a Mughal Treasure Trove about a month before every new major patch. So there's about a month for this. And then the next patch comes. And then there'll be like 3 months of just that patch. And then there'll be a month of Mughal Treasure Trove. The Falcon Ignition Key? That might also be unique to this Treasure Trove. Does anyone know? The Falcon mount hasn't been seen for like 4 to 5 years. How do I have it then? Strange. But yeah, those items that are unique might be worthwhile picking up, so that you don't like miss out if you care. Another one that might be worth considering is specifically the Shadow Quiver Trumpet. It's not because it's special or anything, but because it comes from the third extreme in Shadowbringers, and even though it is perfectly doable unsynced with like 2 players, each run takes over 5 minutes. So it might take a long time to get, and I'm pretty sure it's not soloable. So that also adds to the inconvenience. So that one might, like, of all the things that are farmable on this list, Shadow Quiver is probably one of the best ones to pick up this way. I believe the Magic Bed, yeah, that one is straight up tradable. And the Queen's Guard Barding is as well. There are various items that can straight up be traded, so like if you have the money, you can just buy it. Now, that's what you can get from the event. That's what you can get from the event. It might be worth, like, if you care about all this, it might be worth making a list of the things you don't have and the things that you want to have, so you don't miss something significant. Now, how do you actually get the tomes? The first thing is that this compendium, of course, or Mogpendium, shows everything you can do in the event to get Mogtomes. As others mentioned in the chat briefly, all of the duties here only count if they're done synced, meaning unrestricted party does not work. It has to be, well, it can be level synced. If you have unrestricted party, it has to have level sync toggled as well, but it has to be either like this or like this. If you do it unsynced, doesn't count. You don't get anything. But that does mean if you can solo something synced, you could do it that way. Now, what things can you do? First off, in every treasure trove, there is a single Ultimog challenge, which you have the entire event to do it in. And this time around, you have to clear floor 50 of Heaven on High. Note that Heaven on High goes up to floor 100. So this is like only the halfway mark. It might be hard if you've never done Heaven on High or a deep dungeon before, but it's not the full journey, so it's not too bad. Something that is worth mentioning is that you need to have a fixed party to actually push past floor 30. It gives 50. The Minimog is 2 tasks every week that will be shared between all players, as in everyone has the same 2 tasks every week, and you just choose one. You only need to do one of them. If you do one, the other one no longer gives something. I can say, like, I did the Island Sanctuary one in like 5 minutes, and I did the Mass Carnival in like 30 seconds. But if you don't have an Island Sanctuary, or you don't have a Blue Mage like leveled, then that's not very helpful. So like, there are other options. The weekly objective is unique to your character, which means that my objective and your objective may be different. And you also have each week to do that task. And they give 20, whereas the Minimog gives 10. Everything else in the Mogpendium is infinitely spammable. You could hypothetically grind all of the tomes you need by just spamming, I don't know, Eden's Gate Descent 150 times, or 200 times, or 300 times, however many you need. What generally determines a good farming strategy depends on how much time it takes, per tome. For instance, back in the day, Aurum Vale was like the gold standard, because a group of blue mages, like optimized group, could finish Aurum Vale synced in like 4 to 5 minutes. Which means that it's closing in on 1 tome per minute. It's not quite there, but like that's what we're dealing with. So if you can do that, like that's the key word, is that if you can do that, then anything that gives less than that is less effective than that. And there you go, midichlorian. 3.5 minutes is also, so people can do it in. And then there are like various strategies. The one that I've been using the most since the Mogpendium has been, I just, like, if I'm not doing anything else, I'll just park my character in the gold saucer. And whenever a gate appears, I'll just do that. Most of the time, whatever they're offering will take, like, at most 5 minutes. And can give anywhere between 1 and 10, as it says there, Mogtomes. Some of them give more than 1 tome per minute invested. And some of them give a little less. For instance, if you get one of the harder Leap of Faith configurations, then it might take a while. But no more than 10 minutes. Other people like to, for instance, do the Aurum Vale spam. Some also like to do specifically Eden's Gate Descent or Eden's Gate Resurrection with a pre-made party. If it has blue mages, Resurrection is more common. If it does not have blue mages, then or alternatively the blue mages aren't good enough, Descent is preferred. The reason for that is that if you have a strong enough party, you can skip the intermission with the ad phase on Resurrection. But if you don't have a good enough party, then, well, you can't, and that adds like 1+ minute to the timer, and Descent does not have that, but it's a little longer in general. Others have also just gone to soloing a dungeon as Blue Mage that they've been capable of soloing. Like, I can't remember who mentioned it, but just doing Cutter's Cry solo while waiting for gates to spawn. Yeah, some also like to do Praetorium. The thing is, Praetorium, in terms of time invested per tome, is really bad. Unless you, like, do other things while you're doing Praetorium. Like, I don't know, maybe you're watching a show, maybe you're like, I don't know, maybe you're cooking. I don't know, but if you actually sit there, ready to party for the entire duty, then you could have done something more efficient. Now, with that introductory explanation in order, let me just scroll up here. Hey Joshua, hey Knight, hey Ridleyan, hey Rob Gero. Hey Eaterit, hey Midichlorian. Hey Cat, hey Jason. Hope y'all doing very well. Let's see, Rovgero says, I want to farm the old raids for drip. Is there a way to look for a group? The best you can do, if you're in the novice network, is you can try and ask if anyone wants to join or help you there. Alternatively, I believe you can join Party Finder groups. You can't make them, but I'm pretty sure you can join them. So if you see someone else post up a group for the thing you want to do, you can do that. But yeah, the best you can do is, like, if you know a guy. Erid says, I would say that Eden's Promise card is the hardest thing to get from the list. Huh. Yeah, that might be right. Jason says, I've been doing the gate method and crafting in between. See, that's also a good one. Like, basically, if you can park your character in the gold saucer and just hang out there while doing other things, like whether it's just talking with your free company or some friends, or I don't know, maybe you're watching something. Maybe you're the type of person who has 2 games running at once, and you'll just, you know, play the other game while you wait. That's an option. You can also just, like, be there. But that is certainly, like, one of the most effective options. There's also another one that I kind of forgot to mention. Supposedly, and I have to say supposedly because I haven't managed to successfully make use of this, but supposedly Rival Wings is insanely good for Mogtomes per hour, whether you win or lose. Supposedly. Now, that's completely irrelevant if the queue doesn't pop. And usually the queue doesn't pop outside of specific times of the day. Sometimes even specific times of the week. But if it can pop, it's pretty good. If you like to do PvP, like specifically frontlines, this is also a great time to do it, because if you wanted to do it, like, you can just do it anyway. Another thing that is worth mentioning, speaking of PvP, is that when the next major patch drops in about a month, well, less than a month, I believe, there will be a new series, which means all of this gone. A new quote-unquote battle pass will appear, and you can level from the ground. So if you don't have this stuff yet, and you're now going, oh, that's a good point, Kai. Maybe I should get started. Then this is actually a good time to start, because you get free stuff. Like, you just get extra free stuff on top of what you were going to do anyway. So, you know, might as well. Although, something that is worth mentioning is that a huge amount of the Series XP you get from Frontline is the daily. So, you know, if you can, meter it out a bit, so you don't do twice the work you had to. Hey Bokaj, hope you're doing well. It says, if you skip the Praetorium cutscenes with a pre-made, does that get close to efficient? I don't know, how long does it take? Let's just put it like this. The efficiency you're competing with is somewhere in the ballpark of a half to like 0.8 to 0.9 tomes per minute. Which means that Praetorium has to, just to meet the lower bound there, it has to be completed in under 14 minutes. So if skipping all of the cutscenes means you can beat it in under 14 minutes, it's okay, but you know, if you need that much to just get an okay farm going, maybe it would be better. Matthew says, I don't think you can skip Praetorium cutscenes. There are two ways you can skip the Praetorium cutscenes. The first one is if you close your game while you're in the middle of a cutscene, and then log back in. When you're logged in, like once you're in the game, you will no longer be in the cutscene, and you will be able to proceed. Now, the question is whether your PC is fast enough to get back into the game before the cutscene naturally ends. Like, that's the first question. And the second one is, of course, is your team. Or enough of your team that you can fight the boss anyway. Like, if you're there as a DPS, you might just have to wait for the tank. Or the healer. There's also the possibility that that there's a queue, so it'll take you even longer to get back in. The other way is that apparently there is, you know, Fight Club tools that are not allow you to skip. But I have heard that some people are a little queasy about that because it's very obvious if you immediately get out. Like, the cutscene starts, 5 seconds later the boss is pulled. Like, everyone can see it. So, you know, also saying, are you sure you would... like, even though the chance might be small, are you sure you want to risk your account for that? For again, an okay farm. Ravgera says, are you going to make a video covering your journey to completing Ubu? Probably not. Yeah, I didn't make a video covering my journey for completing the current raid tier, so I don't think I will necessarily. Maybe I would do a video where I go over what we did, but I don't think it'll be that interesting. So I don't know if I will. We'll see it if it happens. If it happens. Because we might not even beat it. Also, hey Liv and Shakespeare. Hope you're doing well. Uwu is the shorthand for one of the oldest ultimates in Final Fantasy XIV called the Weapon's Refrain. It's also known as Ultima Weapon Ultimate. Or Uwu. Because it's funny. Could do an after talk kind of thing? Possibly. Again, it depends on whether we actually manage to beat it, right? Jason says PvP seems to have an influx of players that want to win. Went on a 7-game win streak yesterday. Still unbelievable that I won 7 games solo queuing. Well, in fairness, if there is a huge influx of players that want to win, those players are also on the other teams. Exactly, Zandia. That's kind of the point I was making, is that, like, I think that's also the reason why Bocage said, what if you have a full pre-made for it? But I'm just saying, again, it's very obvious. Like, I don't know how GMs interact with the game, but I'm just saying, let's say, for the sake of example, that a GM just decided to visit your duty just to check. Who knows? Maybe they'll have like these kind of like checks to see if everything's going as expected, and they just see this team that just instantly skip the cutscenes over and over. Like, I mean, it's an open and shut case. Again, incredibly unlikely. But I wouldn't risk that for so little. Oh, the raid tier thing. That could also be. But yeah, to reiterate, just in summary, for those that maybe came in a bit later, if you don't know what the Mughal Treasure Trove is, you talk with one of these itinerant Mughals, they will give you a Mogpendium. You can trade in the Mogtomes you get in the event here for the things you want. Some of them will be event specific, so it might actually kind of suck if you miss out. Note that if you have anything left over, you will be able to buy most of the things from the previous event. However, if you wait too long, you will only be able to buy one thing with the outdated Mogtomes. So, you know, spend them. The way you get them is there is this Ultimog. That is, you have the entire event to do this. Remember, you need a fixed party to go to past floor 30. So don't start with like matched party and then be surprised. It says right here, Minimog is 2 tasks each week that everyone has in common. So if you see someone else mention what the weekly Minimog is, you will have the same one. Weekly objectives are unique to your character, so your task might differ from others. And the standard objectives are endlessly repeatable. Just keep in mind that you don't get credit if you're doing it unsynced. I personally like to park in the gold source and just do these. Enox, hope you're doing well. Roguewolf says, just give us an option to skip the cutscene if all 4 members have seen the cutscenes. Here's a funny little history lesson. That used to be a thing, or not quite. A long time ago, you could just skip the cutscenes. Back when it was an 8-man duty. But people got so fast at clearing the duty that the players that didn't watch could reach the next cutscene before the previous cutscene finished, which meant that the people that were actually watching would just not be served the next cutscene. Like, they'll come out of the cutscene and then, like, they'll miss a cutscene because the game can't give you another cutscene or queue up a cutscene if you're already in one. It's just, you don't get it. And then they made the cutscenes mandatory while simultaneously, and this is the important one, this is the important part, massively increasing the rewards from the duties. Meaning, back when you could skip the cutscenes, the rewards here were a lot slimmer, to say the least. They were a lot leaner. So the reason why the rewards are this good is because you're forced to sit and watch. So, like, I'm just saying, in my opinion, sure, but if the team decides to skip, the rewards get reduced. Boom. And then most people will probably say, no, never mind, I'll watch, it's okay. Like, I'm just saying, you can't have both. The reason the reward is so massive is because you're forced to sit there and watch. And part of the reason why I believe that that's important to maintain is also because some players will queue... Like, if it doesn't do that, then some players will queue in, realize that there is a first-timer, or someone who doesn't want to skip, and then they'll leave. Because, oh, but I don't want the reward if I don't get to skip the cutscenes. And I have already seen cases where people leave MSQ Roulette. For some reason. Like, I was one of the replacements, so I don't know what happened. But, I'm just saying, it's a really dangerous game to offer this. Because some players are so focused on optimization that it'll destroy things rather than be nice for the people that go, oh, that would be nice. Basically, this is why we can't have nice things. Ilana says, probably a grumpy mentor. You know, the worst part there, Ilana, was that when I was a replacement in that duty, it was Castrum, and we were 3 replacements. As in, the queue entered, and 3 of the players left, and then the tank just sat there like, huh, that's weird. Just completely alone. I don't know why they left Castrum. Isn't that the fastest one? But yeah, weird. So I don't recommend that. I'm just saying, if you could skip the cutscene, or that you could just not have the cutscenes if you have a full pre-mate that has already done it before, then it would make it very, very unfair, let's just say. Hey Maledictio and Shaw, hope you're doing well. Maledictio says, my favorite fun fact for Praetorium cutscenes is that different languages will actually have faster or slower load times, JP and French usually being the fastest. That's actually an interesting one. If I remember correctly, Gazel has mentioned that I think it's Praetorium where certain parts are shorter and other parts are longer in Japanese. Which means that, like, long story short, it ends up being about the same. The group, yeah, exactly, the group of Theseus. Well, almost. The true group of Theseus was the one in Ghost Park a long while back. When none of the players were there originally. Like, as in, one player was left, replacements came in, and the original final player left, and more replacements came in. Like, strange. Right then. I actually expected that it would take longer to go through all the explanation for Mogtome stuff. All the Dark Knights with the pink weapons. It's funny. There's a relic and then there's the new fancy one. Edred says, I had a clear Shinryu extreme with 0 original players, all mentors. That is interesting. I'm more surprised that no one just, like, that it didn't just end up getting disbanded. Exactly, Vivi. That's what I would have expected you to do. Like, just... anyone want to do this? No? I mean, if it was a Realm Reborn extreme with 8 mentors, I would be like, unless there was, like, a bunch that are like, I have no idea what we're doing and this is really hard. Unless that was the case, I would probably be like, this is totally free. Like, if I land in something like, I don't know, Rameau Extreme, and there's a healer and a tank and a DPS mentor, I'll be one of them. Then we're pretty good. Like, unless there's someone completely ruining it all, we're pretty safe. It should be doable. But yeah. Now, you might be wondering why I'm saying normally I sit in the gold saucer and just do gates, and then I'm not doing that here. Well, there's two reasons for that. The first one is that's going to be really, really chaotic for a stream, especially because it means that we'll have, like, every 20 minutes suddenly me just going, yeah, event, run. Another thing is that it turns out that you may have heard me mention Torn from the Heavens being a really annoying song in the game. The theme in the Gold Saucer has the same problem. So I just can't be bothered to hang out there for a few hours and then having to deal with the aftermath, or alternatively sit in the Gold Saucer with no music. That also seems weirdly ominous. For those that don't know what that quote-unquote problem is, basically, these songs have been performed in an orchestra like once or twice, and the company that has performed those orchestral versions have a bot crawling YouTube, checking if people play their music. The problem is that the bot thinks that they actually own those songs, so they'll try to claim streams and videos that have a significant portion of the footage with just the song playing somewhat on its own. And you can counterclaim it. They'll usually just let you have it. But the key is they don't own the songs. They claim that the original song is a remix of their version, and that they deserve money from it. Funny that. It's really just annoying. It takes a while to fill out the counterclaim, and I just can't be bothered to deal with it. And we can also do stuff without the gold saucer. But yeah, if you see me suddenly come barreling through somewhere in the gold saucer, that'll be why. Just me camping, waiting for gates. But I don't need that much stuff. I think I need like 157 more Mogtomes to get everything that I was missing. And then everything else is just extra. Now, what should we actually do to farm? Oh, that is actually really good for me. Hey, anyone want to do a Bond Monastery? Yeah, that would be nice, Rogue Wolf. That would be nice. Well, in that case, we can do a bond, and then maybe we can like review what other people have as their weekly tasks. There might be a lot of overlap with the Mog events. If you want to join for a Bond Monastery, come on over to me. We may have to make multiple parties. We probably have to make multiple parties. How many are we? I think we're 10. 11 is if Aradel also wants to join. So we should probably make 2 parties. Does anyone want to lead the second party? Ilana's making the second party. I've run over to Ilana. So that Ilana can see that you're there and wants to join. The reason we do it like this is so that in case we don't land in the same, like, run, it doesn't mean that we just have, like, 2 players, like, left alone. Did you also get Naomi, Ilana? Hey, Craig and Mo. Hope you're doing well. Somal. Is it that bad? And also, hey, Gazel. Hope you're doing well. And we're 5 and 5. So if Erdal and Gazel wants to join, we can add one to each team. But if they'd rather just watch, that's perfectly fine. Six and 6. Let's review roles. I'll play tank if no one else will. But if someone else wants to play tank, you just switch to tank and I'll switch off. Sarah says, I'll try to snipe. Okay. Umbra? Do you mean... I don't know, Eden's Promise Umbra is pretty good. Alright, the way that I'll do it is that I will queue Vauban Monastery when the Eosia time timer says 4:10. So you don't even have to look at the stream, you just look at your Eosia time and queue there. If you're on Chaos, you will very likely land in the same group, assuming we don't get an instant queue pop. And that is exactly because there is a stream delay, so if you had to wait for me to click, you'd have to account for that. So it's just easier to do something you can see. Yeah, unfortunately, it is weird. It must be weird that OCE can be visited by everyone, but OCE can't visit anyone in return. It must lead to a strange economy, in a way, on the OCE materia. Because if something is cheap on OCE, then anyone can just go and buy it. And then it impacts the other markets. But only a character on OCE can sell on OCE, unless it's like an actual hand-to-hand trade. Hey Yummy Mommy, hope you're doing well. And I hope you enjoy. We may have raided Ravana's maps when we were over there on Sunday. Yeah, I could imagine. Yeah, exactly that. Oh yeah, I also just realized, or I didn't just realize, but I realized, I'm going to have a very interesting rotation as Viper. Gazel says things on OZ in general are higher than other regions from what I can tell. I wonder why, Gazel. Like, that's basically the exact reason that I said it would be weird, because if anything's cheaper on OCE than any... like, if it's cheaper than anywhere else, it'll just get yoinked. Like, imagine a mount is for sale on OCE. It's more expensive than on Light and Chaos. It's more expensive than on all the Japanese data centers, but specifically, it's cheaper than on Ether. So Ether will come on over and buy it. There you go. Maybe. It could be all NA for that matter. Yeah, that's true, Zelly. Earlier on Discord, we were talking about the fact that we're talking about accents in English. And I've been told that the average Danish accent is very nice because we have a tendency to like almost overpronounce words, which makes it somewhat easy to follow Danish person speaking English. However, when a Danish person talks English with Danish words, then it almost sounds like a German. It's actually really hard. Nailed it. How the hell, Leandro? Hope you're doing well. Just, yeah, exactly. Less V. And Saras didn't get the snipe. Oof. We did, however, get 2 alliances. With infiltration successful. What languages do you speak? I only speak Danish and English. I understand a very small amount of French and German and Japanese. But I don't really... Like, I can possibly pronounce some of the words correctly, but... don't really follow the language very well. I should also... I should also be able to understand Swedish and Norwegian reasonably well for the same reason. I feel like I'm getting trolled in the Alliance chat. The left hand's gone. Imagine having a burst for the raid buff. Could you imagine? Thank you, Alejandro. Nice. English and Spanish. And learning Japanese. Very nice. Making the music here be 2 out of 5 pieces and have the chance for dupe of one was evil. Huh. In this duty? No! My strongest attack! My combo finisher! How could you do this to me? It's evil, man! You better be back before my combo ends. I'm gonna be real cross with you. He came back about 33 seconds later. Ha! Hey Kazari! Hope you're doing well. Hey, Michael. Hope you're doing well. But he's pretty cool, isn't he, Alejandro? That's hard to say, by the way, Michael. It kind of depends on what kind of things you're looking for. Oh, whoops. Right. Mechanics are here. My positionals, though. And also, Aviak, hope you're doing well. The samurai with reverse positionals. Bless you. Glad to hear that, Raccoon. Between waiting for saucer stuff in the cutscenes, I managed to read Thud and started reading Nightwatch. I actually make it through my backlog of books during this event. That's the spirit, Ceres. Just optimizing the Mogtomes with reading. Right, Agony. Show ho! That's a really weird one for the shorthand people decided to use for that mechanic.
The Beowulf youth guides your fate, but have you the faith to fulfill his legacy?
Oh wow, we have markers. We skipped oh yeah, we did. That is a good point. That is hard to say, Alejandro. If you're getting hit by like AoEs from the mobs, then like something you might have to watch out for is that you're not standing in the telegraphs. If you're getting hit by other stuff that you can't see,
To the current of life we succumb. Its judgment
then it's hard to say.
is right as cold as steel.
Oh. Agent Monica proving that we're all weaklings. We can just take it. Just take the damage. Must it needs be cleansed? Must it? Musteth it needs to be cleansed? They decided to not voice act that next part. They didn't need it. It's fine. That's really funny to me sometimes when they have like... They have the boss just have nearly all of their voice lines voice acted, and then there's just randomly a line that's just like thrown in there that's also there. It's just... Now we decided she didn't need to say that one. Like, I wonder what the explanation is for that.
I call out to the skies and tremble as the
Yeah,
brilliance
Michael's suggestion of
and tear their flesh asunder.
making sure you're zoomed out a bit more so you can see, and like maybe a more top-down view so you can better see if you're getting hit by a telegraph or something could be good. If you're having latency, that could also be the explanation. Like, the thing is, if you're taking a lot more damage as a melee, then it's probably because you're getting hit by something that simply doesn't hit you because you're at range otherwise. Oops. I got snapshotted it.
The dreams of men are fleeting, yet they must be embraced if they are to flourish. Have you the faith to do as much?
I don't know.
Oh, divine light, send us from our sins! Gaze deep into the light! They who dwell aloft have spoken. Let their words echo in your empty soul. Ruination is come!
Hey, Catfish Jr. Hope you're doing well.
Well fought, champion. I leave you now to your quest. My Ovelia awaits.
That is a good question, Catfish Jr. If you like to play a different character more, then, I mean, play that more. What you can do with the other characters is just do nothing with it until you want to do something with it. Hey Yannick, hope you're doing well. The total chaos of the Alliance chat. Ugh. Ah. My born urge to tell DPS to LB to just not see it vanish? Well... okay then. Does it vanish when we pull the next boss? That's good to hear, Kwasadi. That's what really matters. I have heard a lot of people having trouble with wilds and a lot of complaints with wilds for that matter, but what really matters is that you're having fun. Like, at the end of the day, that's what matters.
You serve another. I am Sidolphus Orlando.
Sidolphus.
Journey ends here.
Oh. The good news is that he does not have positionals. Or rather, he auto-succeeds positionals. He's above. Hope you're doing well.
I call out to the skies and tremble as the brilliance of 1,000 bolts blinds mine enemies and tears their flesh asunder. To the current
Tremble.
we succumb. Its judgment swift and final. Its bite as cold as steel.
As cold as steel.
Open your eyes to the darkness and drown in its loveless embrace. The gods will not be watching.
Actually, I'm pretty sure there's a good chance the gods will be watching. In fact, there's a god watching right now.
Such is
At least if your name is to be believed. Unless you put your hands in front of your eyes.
Seven shadows cast, seven fates foretold. Yet at the end of the broken path lies death, and death alone.
Spoiling MSQ for the Thunder God. Wait, MSQ?
Die by the sword. There is time enough for regret in the flames of hell.
Isn't it a raid?
Honed is the blade that severs the villain's head. Endless is the path that leads him from hell.
MSQ has gods. Does it? Isn't that an alliance raid? No! Positionals are back! Oh no! Hey, Space Queen! Oh, you're doing well. Hey, Seraph of Cats. Hope you're doing well.
I have been called the God of Thunder. You will now know why. Upon my holy blade, the very world lies in balance.
But isn't your blade more like a thunder blade?
And now the scales will tip.
Crap. Thunder Fury Blessed Blade of the Windseeker. Yeah, pretty much. He kind of has 3 of those, although it looks a little different.
Escape is not so easily granted.
Is there a melee DPS you would consider super complex? Among the melee DPS, I would probably say that Ninja and Samurai are among the more complex.
Find my defenses quite impenetrable.
But I would say all 6 of them has their complexities. Yes, even Viper.
A piteous display.
Has anyone actually wiped due to that sequence of changing battlefields? No, they throw you at a specific spot, fortunately, Fast Day. Like, they actually throw you at a specific spot. You saw we landed right there because the game wants Alliance B to be there.
Is come.
Hey, Testerams. Hope you're doing well. And no worries, Seraph of Cats. Oh, some HP. Oh, sure. Well, that's part of that, like the raid-wide attack, you could say. So if you're not healed up, that could be a problem. That sounds about right, Michael. There are so many servers, which one should I choose, like popularity-wise and content like PvP, PvE? Well, it doesn't really matter because you can freely visit every world in your region, test ramps. However, it is worth noting that the light data center, which, you know, have the servers, is where people usually gather for raiding hard content, like at max level. Aside from that, it doesn't really matter, I don't think. There'll be some servers that are preferred, which means you'll get like an extra bonus for a while, which might be worth considering when choosing. But again, other than that, you can visit any European world if you choose a European starting world. Hey Drope and Angel, hope you're doing well.
You shall rue the day you raised your eyes to the heavens.
Night, Rogue Wolf. Good night. Yeah, pretty much, Fast Day. The only reason you would wipe to that sequence is if you were, like, not healed up enough. Otherwise, it shouldn't be a problem. Is one tank, 2 healers the norm? In Alliance raids, yes. In Alliance raids, the gold standard is 1 tank, 2 healers, and 5 DPS. In normal raids and trials, it's 2 tanks, 2 healers, and 4 DPS. And in dungeons and such, it's 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS. But because there's 3 alliances in an alliance raid, there's technically 3 tanks and 6 healers. And there's also a little history thing in that, because originally when alliance raids were made, it was actually 2 tanks, 2 healers, and 4 DPS per alliance. It was just that I think they changed it because a lot of the time there were so many tanks in the setup that often half of the tanks, in like 1 tank in each alliance, would be relegated to some weird, extremely obnoxious task, like legitimately pushing a button. As in just standing ready to push a button. Yeah. Ow. That was a little weird. It looked like all of the clocks ticked out at the same time, or I was not looking right. Yeah, specifically in the first Alliance raid, Labyrinth of the Ancients, there is this fight with Behemoth. There are these towers out on the edge. I believe you can act, like you can you know, right-click them, like do an action on them, and then like there'll be a cast bound. When it finishes, it'll, like, if all of them are pressed, it'll turn off the passive thunder damage you take every few seconds in that fight for a while. And some tanks would just be relegated to do that. People don't really bother anymore because the fight will resolve fast enough that it doesn't matter nowadays. You can just heal through it and it's fine. Welcome back, Rillian. The long story short is that it has been known since before the release that Wilds had some interesting optimization problems, which means that some players are having huge problems with the game crashing frequently, having incredibly poor performance, like very low frame rate and so on and so forth. Other players are having very few issues. And then there's also like other things, like people not liking the way that they structure the story in the game, things like that. Others enjoy it. The important part for each individual is, of course, like if they're playing the game, are they having fun? Like in the case of Kasari says that they're having fun. Actually, This is all I know about Monster Hunter. The Rathalos music makes me angry because of how many times I've had the Great Hunt. Oh. Would be a lot funnier if Caetsu was in Final Fantasy XIV, wouldn't it?
Few can claim to have endured the might of my will.
Caetsu's theme is very special, as some of you may know. For those that don't know what's funny about that is that Caetsu's theme is nothing. As in, Caetsu's theme is literally nothing. It's just the breeze and the wind, making it extra ominous, because monsters usually have a fighting theme of some sort. Whether it's a generic theme for the zone, or it's a specific one for the monster, doesn't matter. Caetsu turns off the music.
Your very soul shall not escape my wrath. Kneel before me.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That's a very awkward position for those crosses. Because Caetsu's actually... Oh yeah, that is true! Normally the boss, like the monster music plays when the monster is seeing you, right? Like when it can see you and is actually actively engaging you. And some then say that the reason why Caetsu does not have a theme at all is because technically it never sees you, it never engages you in combat directly. It knows it's fighting something, but it doesn't know necessarily that it's fighting you because it can't see you. So you never enter combat with it. Even though you do, it's just that the music is nothing.
I see it now, in you.
Is she not supposed to switch to another phase? I feel like she's forgotten something. That stuff usually happens later, I feel like. Weird. We're too powerful. I'll pass the cards in case there's someone trying to get the cards. You skip the labyrinth at 15% or lower. Oh, I don't think I've ever done that before. But that explains a lot. We did bring like half of the alliance with reasonably strong players. Please remove Echo. Imagine if one day they just randomly announce, yeah, by the way, you know all those old duties that are kind of easy because of Echo and whatnot? Yeah, we're removing that. Good luck. You just give Labyrinth of the Ancients a massive buff. Sorry. Agent Monica, was it the sniper thing that hit you? Or did you mean on the second boss where you just took the thing you're supposed to use the shield for? Sarah says, so on average, Praetorium and Obon takes the same amount of time. Huh. Well, in fairness, as we saw here, we had a reasonably solid group, so maybe on average Obon would be a little longer. But if they do take about the same time, then the amount of tomes you get would make sense. Yeah, the way that it works, Agent Monica, and for anyone else who hasn't done Obon or doesn't understand Obon, on the second, on the first boss, Mustadio, he does that thing where he hops over to snipe at you. The reason why people always scream show hole when that mechanic happens is that you will get like a 270-degree circle around you with like an open hole in it, like a free gap. You have to position your character such that that open gap is facing towards where Mustadio is positioned. And he will be positioned somewhere specific, so you have to like look for him so you face the correct way. If you don't, you'll take... Well, usually you just straight up die. Like, it usually just one-shots you. But I believe it is survivable. The second boss will put down, like, small platforms almost to grab a shield or a sword. The boss exclusively puts these things down when you need them. Meaning... For instance, that she will early on put down shield stations. You go into one, your bonus action becomes a shield. She will then do a raid wipe that gives a vuln stack that hurts a lot, like it did like 10k, I think. But if you use the shield while facing towards her, like Passage of Arms style, you'll take no damage. So you just have to like weave that in and have it ready when her mechanic resolves. When she hands out the sword, she will usually, I believe, she like locks up an entire alliance, and the other alliances have to help them by using the sword, which breaks those cubes that they get locked in. And then later there will be ads that have the swords and the shields, and the shield guy will put up like basically hallowed ground, and you have to use the sword to break it. The sword guys will use a move called Mortal Blow, which you have to use the shield to block. So, like, that's the whole thing of that fight. There's also a thing on the Thunder God that I think I mentioned a few times in my Mentor-led videos, but among all the things, one of the most common ones to screw up is that at some point he'll put, like, a tether on one guy in each alliance. And after a short while, will shoot, like, an attack on the person who has the tether. The tether... Well, that attack will put physical vuln on you, and also the attack does physical damage, so if you take 2 hits, you die. I think unless you're a tank, but a tank wouldn't want to take it. There's a simple explanation to that. The boss's auto attacks are physical damage, so if you let the tank take a single one of those hits, the tank will take somewhere in the ballpark of 2 or 3 times their actual total HP and damage over several auto attacks. So, like, it requires a huge amount of effort to recover that for the healers and the tank if the tank gets hit a single time. So you don't want to do that. Maybe they can take the first one, but you don't really. Like, you're basically supposed to have the DPS rotate taking those. maybe have a healer join in. I didn't get to join in. Yeah, like, sure, you can have the tank do it, but it's just not necessary, and it requires planning, as Agony and Cat says. Liv says, simply take one of the mortal blows, as they are, unlike the name suggests, not mortal blows. That, Jose Brantum, hope you're doing well. We just did Obon Monastery, because I think we're more than one person who had it on our weekly task. Also, hey Mr. Firefox, I hope you're doing well, and thank you so much for the support. I hope you enjoy the emotes. Welcome to the Cult of the Pink. And hey Buzzy, hope you're doing well. It will be fun if you play Savage with roles you are not comfortable with for all players in the party. That sounds very chaotic. that certainly sounds like chaos. I think we also kind of, almost, sort of did that on Black Cat some weeks ago. Although, I'm pretty sure I stayed main tank. Like, that's the funny thing, is that each time we talk about doing things like that with like, oh, we're doing something else, does anyone want a different role? Most of the time, turns out that the players playing tank don't mind playing tank, the healers playing healer would actually like to play healer, and the people playing DPS actually like playing DPS, and then we have like maybe 2 or 3 players rotating, but that's it. And I certainly wouldn't want to do such a thing where would be forcing players to play a role they're not comfortable with. Like, that might be fun to watch, but I don't think it would be fun to play. Just for fun. That's what I mean, Busy. Let's just review your comment again. It would be fun if you play Savage with roles you are not comfortable with. I can play all roles. But some players in our raid team would legitimately not be comfortable with certain roles, and it would not be fun for them because they would be not very comfortable. You see what I mean? That's the spirit, Agony. And the thing is, you don't need to master all jobs. I wouldn't say I have mastered all jobs either. I have, like, my weak points. And the way that it doesn't come out too clearly is because if, like, I'm doing a mentor roulette, I'll be super focused on doing as well as I can with a job. And live stream, usually I'll be playing mainly jobs that I'm somewhat comfortable with. So it's less likely to go sideways. Not like I wouldn't. Like, I mean, I played a lot of Bard on stream on a bad connection back when we were still doing Small Kai, because the vote said that Small Kai had to be a Bard. And I'm not very good at Bard. Jose Peaches, hope you're doing well. Question, what's your least favorite job to play at the moment? Least favorite, like, see, that's an interesting question, because I have been asked what is my least favorite job or my most hated job before, but least favorite job to play is slightly different. Ninja. Ninja would be the one that is my least favorite job to play. The reason being that Ninja's rotation is insanely focused on the burst, which means that it's basically doing nothing outside of it, and that means that if anything goes wrong with the burst, it just feels like it's completely in ruins until you fix it, or you just have to deal with it. Certain other jobs feel the same, but at least they still have stuff going on outside of the burst, so it doesn't feel as egregious. That's the reason why Ninja would be the one that is my least favorite to play. Maybe that is which one you think you're the worst at. That would probably be Bard. It would probably be Bard. As he says, is voice chat a must for raids? No. No, it isn't. Not only is a fourth of my raid team always mic off in the voice chat, so they're not saying anything, but on stream, it is not uncommon that about half of the raid isn't speaking. It may be helpful to have, be in the voice chat so you can hear the ones speaking, but considering the fact that party finder groups are a thing and a lot of party finder groups don't use voice chat at all, no. Nope. You don't need it. However, it can help compensate if you're not that good. Yeah, exactly, Perrin. Also, hope you're doing well. And Reen, hope you're doing well as well. Reen says, I really wanted to like Ninja, but I was so bad at the mudra. It is a little challenging. I would say the mudras are not my big concern. Like, for me, it's like the whole package, as it were. That it's just that Ninja is so wholly focused on the burst that I'm not a huge fan of. And I know it's weird because I'm like, I kind of like Pictomancer, and they're also super focused on the burst, but there's a reason that I like Viper a bit more than Pictomancer, and Viper is like, if there ever was a job that didn't really think that much about preparing for the burst, I would say it would be Viper. But it is pretty funny. Back in Stormblood, so before Machinist got the rework of Shadowbringers, I always hated the fact that Machinist had their I think they had Gauss Round, and at level 50 they have Ricochet, but I believe back in Stormblood those didn't have charges. It was just, when they were there, they were there. But another thing they had going was that they had the ammo gauge. So they had reload and quick reload, I believe, which had like different cooldowns. Reload gave them 3, and quick reload gave them +1. When you use certain actions with ammo, they would do slightly more damage, and if they had some sort, they might have some sort of side effect. Notably, your 1-2-3 combo worked very differently. To be precise, Split Shot had a 50% chance of enabling you to use Slug Shot, and Slug Shot then had a 50% chance of enabling you to use Clean Shot. They were not combos, it was just one gave you the buff that allowed you to use 2, and 2 gave you the buff to use 3. If you used them with ammo, it changed to 100%, which meant that you could technically go 1, 2, 1, and then you would have a 2 and a 3 ready. Like, you could basically, like, push your rotation around like that, which I thought was mildly interesting. But back then, Wildfire's cooldown was 60 seconds, not 2 minutes. And the way Wildfire worked was that it basically took note of, I believe it was 25% of the damage you had done in the time it was there, and then it exploded for that damage. Which meant it was basically a 10-second single target fight or flight. Which meant, and you might, like, this is what I mean when I'm saying back in Stormblood I felt this way. I don't quite feel that way anymore, but to me it felt like, wow, Machinist has this really crazy rotation with all these things it can do. And then Wildfire comes in and says you have to use all of your cooldowns every minute on the minute in a 10-second burst, and then just do nothing for 50 seconds. Meanwhile, we smash cut to present day in Dawntrail, and, like, I mean, if you had a job with a 1-minute cooldown, if you had a job with a 1-minute cooldown that, I don't know, like, gave you a damage boost for like 10 to 15 seconds, you would also put everything in there and then just basically do nothing the remaining minute once the buff ran out. You get where I'm going with this, right? Also, hey, Nozarel and Steve. Hope you're doing well. And no worries, Alejandro. But yeah, basically, I've never been a huge fan of, like, the burst window. It's just, that's the way it is. So that's the way we do it. Hey, Emily. Hope you're doing well. Well, Agony, the long story short is that Machinist had this mishmash of tools that could be used at various times, and then at level 45? 45, you get Wildfire. And then there's no more use these tools at various times. You use them in Wildfire. That's the way you do it. The end. Now, what do we do next? I don't know. If we have some people with various duties on the Mogpendium that also have them as a weekly objective, we could do that. The burst resources are also disengagement resources. Yeah, in a way. It probably makes more sense to do some 8-man stuff. Well, how about, before we get too caught up in it, I have a group of 6 players here. We could make an 8-man and do whatever 8-man stuff people have on their weekly tasks that are preferably also on this list. So if there's anyone in the current party that does not want to do that, they of course have the opportunity to leave. Those that do want to do that and are not in the party, I would like to know. I'm sure there's more than 2, so... I'm guessing Shaq stepped forward because they wanted to, but they're still in another party. We have a lot of people. Aerodel, please. I have top on my list. Can we do that real quick? Shouldn't take long, trust. Ah, yes, of course. Oops. Right. Alright, Jason. Enjoy your evening. Right then. Let's start with Seed of Sacrifice, which is the one Olivia has. Let's see. We would at least need. We would at the very least need a tank and. Yeah, that works. And yeah, that is true. Blue Mage technically works in this little range. Can you generate LB with a Blue Mage in there? Yes. Of course. Of course you can. It's just Blue Mage can't use Limit Break. Oh wait, it's not a raid. Cat can mimicry when we're inside. I mean, the main problem for Blue Mage is that they cannot actually use the Limit Break, so they have to cheese it. 7 Blue Mages plus 1 tank could do the fight pretty fast. Probably? Possibly? Blue Mage will be coming in 7.x. I feel like if they wanted Blue Mage to have a limit break, they would have like figured it out by now, but I guess they could always change their mind. Seed of Sacrifice has a lot of scripted moments, no matter how fast you kill it. True, Nozarel, but even in the extreme version that has the tank LB moment. Guys? I feel like something was overlooked in the planning here. Are we gonna arrest a tank?
Be gone, spawn of shadow! Darkness must be destroyed!
Yeah. Nox says Savage Raiders, by the way. I mean, Shaq said they used everything. Did you use anything, Nox? You are the pure healer in the setup.
This battle shall be our last.
Hey, Gustavo. Hope you're doing well. Hey, you boy 6. Hope you're doing well. Good to see you.
Darkness must be destroyed.
Gustavo, this is Viper unique job from Final Fantasy XIV? Yes.
Gleaming steel, light my path.
I believe Reaper is also unique to 14, and you could argue that the incarnation of Sage that we got is also pretty much unique to 14. Leandro says, so you're grinding tomestones for the event? Yep, that is this stream, is introducing what the event is, how to go about it, and then we're just doing some stuff with it. Two hands! I'm pretty sure that the Reaper is unique to 14. Joe says, do you think FF17 will be an MMO? It would be incredibly surprising if it were. However, if they were to release another MMO Final Fantasy,
It cannot be.
17 would be the obvious time to do it, since 11 is one and 14 is one. And that's true, Nozereld. If one person fails that QuickTime event, it's full wipe.
To me, warriors of light.
Do you lose if your bar empties entirely? Yes. You immediately lose if it empties entirely.
Mankind's first hero and his final hope.
Any room in the grinding group? Well, we just now put a team together of people interested in doing it, so we'll see.
Your
What's
demise.
the timing, by the way? I don't know. Like, feel it out. You nailed it! Good enough.
You still stand. Very well. Begone, spawn of shadow.
Is Gunbreaker job in other Final Fantasy games? I feel like the reason why Gunbreaker isn't really seen as a new one is because it's basically Final Fantasy VIII. Like, there's a guy that is basically the Gunbreaker there, but that game doesn't have jobs. So it would be like if they added a great sword wielding sword guy that uses various magics contained in materia, but also uses like many multi-slash attacks like Cloud does, and then calls it something associated with him, and then we say, well, technically it's not like it is a new job because, you know, Cloud didn't have a job, so, you know. Is this really Warrior of Light or is it the reverse Warrior of Light? That is a good question, Freeliv. Gustavo says, do you have lore videos? I do not. But, I believe Synodic Scribe might have something. What happened? What happened? Cloud was canonically unemployed. Okay, that is a fair point. That is true. That is, I suppose that is true. He didn't have a job. He was actually unemployed. Also, that, as Ardell says, if you have a lore question, you could absolutely discuss it on the Discord server. Gleaming steel, light my path. I don't know, Gustavo. The thing is, the story of the gunblades in Final Fantasy XIV, at least, is that they're not guns that are blades. They are blades of Gunhilde. So basically, they're blades first, guns second, and essentially they're just boomsticks. It really comes to it, but I do understand the disappointment.
Begone, spawn of shadow.
Garlemald Gunbreaker. Long range Gunbreaker.
Darkness must be destroyed.
Was this ice? It was ice. Hmm.
No, not yet.
Do we do a funny?
Clad in prayer, I am invincible.
I'll cancel the limit break. We were talking about this the other day. Apparently you can just cancel the limit break. Clad in prayer, I am invincible! That's a good voice line. I was sure that he would use the invuln when it was too late to back out, but no, he just does it, and then you can just cancel the limit break if you're paying attention. Very odd how the Gunbreaker has less to do with guns than Machinist based on names alone. Well, it is funny how the Machinist, which is like the gunner job, a large part of their attacks are not guns. And Gunbreaker doesn't really shoot. They just, like, they would be just as good if you just called them, like, the boom sword job or something. Zam says, does he invuln again if you do it again? I actually considered doing it again, but I felt like I had my fun. No one signed up for me to spam invuln the guy. I considered it and then, nah. Gustavo says, essentially, is it true that tanking is the easiest role? I wouldn't say so. It depends on what you put value in. In terms of dealing with mechanics, you could say that tanks have it easiest because of the thing we often refer to as tank privilege. If there is a role that can get away with mechanics over and over again, like failing them, it's tanks. Like, they just get the free card to survive anyways, whereas the other roles don't. On the other hand, we go over to healer. They have the capacity to heal up as many times as they need to. As long as they're not actively tanking, they have a relatively easy experience there. They have a lot of control. But it comes with the same, like, responsibility of using that control, which means that it's a lot of work. DPS often have a lot more complicated rotations, which would make them harder by that metric, but relative to the other roles, DPS tend to get away with the least responsibility. Like, if you do a huge AoE pull in a dungeon, you wipe to that AoE pull. Why? Oh, the tank and the healer weren't up to the task. What if the tank was using their defensive cooldowns as well as they could? And what if the healer was actually using their resources as well as they could? But the DPS were AFKing at the entrance. So the tank and the healer ran out of cooldowns. You're missing damage. But the probability of that specific scenario playing out is incredibly small. Like, insanely small. So the likelihood that the DPS ever gets blamed for things going sideways is usually very small, unless they do something really obvious, like actively messing up mechanics and whatnot. So DPS tend to have minimal responsibility as a result, and a lot of players think that makes them really easy. And if you're playing the job poorly, unless you're playing a black mage, there's a reasonable chance no one will notice. Aquatail says, if we wipe, it's my fault. If we clear, I got carried. Oh. Steve says, if the tank does a big pull and everybody wipes, just pull out your socks up and try again. Well, I will say, based on my experiences of soloing duties with Warrior, is that once you have raw intuition, there are a lot of pulls where if the tank wants to, as in, what it really takes is that the tank desires to clear the pole. Then they can. I'm a little confused, Phaedra. Just a little confused. Yeah, same, Nazareld. I also feel like Phaedra was either not paying attention or looking at something else. Because I basically put up an extremely specific scenario and said that even if it was a DPS fault, it would be difficult to determine that. So I don't know how they came to the conclusion that it was saying that if tank fails, it's the DPS's fault. Like, I really don't see that. That's the magic of wanting to be offended. Yeah, that sounds like a possibility, assuming that Phaedra actually left or they were trying to make a joke. I don't know. But yeah, to Gustavo's question, long story short, tanks can sometimes be viewed as the easiest because they have, like, they get the they get the most, like, freebies, you could say, if you know what you're doing. But definitely, it's like, if you're bad at tank, then tank is insanely hard. Yeah, I don't know, Bronto Mancelli. We were talking about what's the easiest role. And then I guess a little bit of a misunderstanding, perhaps. Hey, you and Tycrod, hope you're doing well. Tathio says, just about the only times I've seen wiping to dungeon pulls be DPS's fault is the mega pulls in Mount Gulk not dying before the healer and tank were out of cooldowns. Indeed, and this is actually what I mean by if the tank is a warrior, there's actually an argument to be made that if the warrior wants it enough, they can beat the pull anyway. Because I've synced both of the Giga pulls in Mount Gulk. Like, both of them. As a warrior. They're time consuming, and you have to kite the pack. But if you want to beat the pack without wiping, a warrior can. The rest of the group is going to hate it, because you're going to be, like, running the pack around like crazy. But you will not wipe. Basically, warrior's the main protagonist. Yeah, in a way, they just dynamize through it. Tigran says you can probably run a group as bad tank, okay tank, good tank, bad healer, okay healer, good healer, bad DPS, okay DPS, and good DPS, and come out with crazy scenarios. That's 9 players. I'm a little confused. And you're probably right, Cat. I've not changed my house in quite a while. Anyway. The next thing that I wrote down was E10. Does your house have enough pink? No. A little story here is that I moved from an Uldar house, so I just had like the Uldar style because I moved to here, and someone complained in the neighborhood that they had to deal with the pink hell mansion down the street. In my defense, I was here as one of the first houses when this ward was made, so they either moved in at the same time as me or after me, so they knew what they signed up to. But when they did, just to be clear, the Uldar house didn't have very much pink. It had a little bit pink on the top, but it wasn't that pink. That was when I bought the Kabi house style, because it has more pink. And also because it's made of books. It is, Peaches. It's actually pretty funny. When I got this house, it was when these walls were opened, and there was actually only one other person bidding on this specific plot. Who was it that had E10? Yeah, quite a while back in Endwalker Free Live, I actually, I soloed Cutter's Cry as Scholar synced. And being able to just kite around was pretty handy, but the Chimera took so long that I ran out of MP spamming Ruin 2. Gustav says, this reminds me of that video you made about the worst possible scenario for a dungeon run if you could clear it, like playing as bad as possible. Oh yeah, when we did the weird Vanguard run. Thank you, Aerodil. I don't believe so, Viek. I'm pretty sure there isn't anything in the rules in Final Fantasy XIV that says that you have to do anything if people complain about your house. I think the only exception to that is if, like, if you glitched furniture out of bounds or something, so that, like, your furniture is hanging over someone else's property. If they report that, you might actually run into some trouble if you don't do anything about it. But, like, at that point, you know what you did, right? Like, if you basically have your housing hanging over someone else's property and they complain, like, I feel like we can all agree that it is pretty obvious that that's not okay. Right? But aside from that, I'm pretty sure that, like, you're pretty fine to do whatever you want. Which is also part of the reason why, when someone complained about my pink hill mansion, I just went, yeah, it would be a shame if it became more pink, wouldn't it? Like, I'm also just saying, as I said, my house was there so early that it is incredibly unlikely that they moved in and then was surprised that there was a pink hill mansion. I also remember when my free company moved into the Ishgard housing, that someone complained that our house was completely ruining the atmosphere because our house was bright red. It was a bright red Kabi house. It still is, if I remember correctly. And it's like the only house, one of the only houses in the entire ward that you can see from anywhere, because everything else just fades in with the background. Can you upgrade the size of your house? No. I believe there's some... they either implemented or will implement a change where you can change the interior of your house to whatever you want. So you can have basically TARDIS housing. You can have a large inside of a small, but you can't change... you can't upgrade the actual outside size because... well, it's an actual, like, game space. If suddenly your house grew from a small to a large... like, you saw where my house was, right? That's a large. If you see a small housing somewhere, if that suddenly just poofed and became a large, it would clip into everything. Like, that you just can't. Gustavo says, if you could have a job change the way it works today to one of its previous versions, what would it be? That is a good question. I feel like... Any one job being changed to a previous incarnation is a difficult thing. I feel like the one that I think would be the most interesting to revisit, that is to say, don't just make it exactly like how it used to be, but like consider the idea it was working with, is old Dark Knight with the dark arts mechanic it had going. I think that would be interesting. The problem is that I recognize why they went away from that design. I understand why. I feel like they could make it interesting, but I understand why they decided to do it Greased Lightning Monk is also a good one that they could revisit. Grown back to when we had 3 Nastrons. That's not very long ago. Astrologian did used to be a lot more complex. But let's just say the way Astrologian played in Stormblood, broadly speaking, was that the way players played it when we're playing optimally was that they were basically playing the cards to produce divination, as in the raid buff that we have now. Produce divination about every 2 to 3 minutes. That was the game plan. That was what they were doing. It didn't matter that all 6 cards had various different effects. The game plan was to make balance raid-wide, which was damage buff raid-wide. So they just reworked the job to be that. You just have divination. They gradually moved it from you had to work to get divination to you just get divination. But basically, yes, it used to be a lot more complex. But ultimately, people found out how to optimize it and did that. And then eventually the developers just went, well, you just want this. Like, sure, back in the day, you could draw a bowl which reduced... Like, you could basically make a 30-second rampart if you wanted to. That was an option they could make. They could make better rampart. But why would you? Why would you? When you could make 30-second lance charge. Right? It's the same idea when I said old Dark Knight. The whole Dark Arts system, to put it in short, was Dark Knight could, while they had their dark side buff up, which was all the time in Stormblood and in periods in Heavensward. The important part is when they had the buff up, they could use Dark Arts whenever they wanted to buff the next thing they did in some way or another. There were some exceptions, like for instance, there wasn't an upgraded juiced up Hard Slash, but there was a juiced up Siphon Strike that just did slightly more damage. Some of the juiced up versions did way more damage. Like for instance, Carven Spit was 100 potency and recovered MP without Dark Arts. It was like 450 or 350 potency with Dark Arts. So you always used Carven Spit with Dark Arts. Other examples was Abyssal Drain with just a spell you could spam, but it didn't heal you unless you used Dark Arts. Dark Mind was only 15% magic damage reduction, but it was 30% if you used Dark Arts. But having all these defensive additions with Dark Arts is redundant because the optimal choice, like 99 times out of 100, as far as I understood, was use Dark Arts on damage. Just use it on damage. What does Dark Knight spend their MP on now? TBN and damage. Like, they basically went, well, you just want damage anyway, right? Remove the middleman. Boom. Now it's all damage. Easy. So, that's what I mean by, I feel like we could revisit this Dark Arts style. However, I understand why they went away from that. Vivi says Living Shadow used to cost MP, right? Nope, Living Shadow was added in Shadowbringers, and it cost Blood Gauge. In Stormblood, TBN gave you 50 blood gauge when the shield popped. Which meant that TBN was technically a way to convert MP into blood gauge if you wanted that. Well, we have 2 spots now. What do we do with that? Gustavo says, "Is Black Mage better nowadays than what it ever was?" I mean, I feel like Black Mage is fine, but it is one of those things where they changed it, and some people are gonna like it, some people are gonna hate it. Like that's the best I can give you. I think it's fine, but I'm not a Black Mage main. Right. The next one on the list was Golbez. Does everyone have Voidcast Days? That is, of course, also an interesting suggestion, Sally, that they could have made it so that instead of just making all the Dark Art stuff, like remove that and make it all damage, they could have gone the way of going, okay, actually Dark Arts adds defensive properties to your attacks or something like. They could have done that, but they chose to not to do that, which I guess also makes sense. Imagine if imagine if current Dark Knight was like that. Then their burst would probably feel more barren. Possibly. Also that Maledictio. I just want to point out for the people that are like Black Mage just gets worse, because some people feel like that. There was a long time period, as in a long time period, where if you used Flare, the only thing you could do afterwards, until level 72, was transpose and wait. If memory serves. I'm pretty sure that was how it played out. And an even longer period where where at level 35 you got Fire 3, but you didn't get Astral Fire 3 or Umbral Ice 3 or Blizzard 3 until level 40. So basically at level 35 you went, neat! Anyway, like you couldn't use Fire 3 for anything. It doesn't matter, Gustavo. There are sometimes situations where a specific kind of tank is slightly more convenient as main tank or off tank, but ultimately they're all capable of doing both things. Exactly, Vivi. Exactly.
If you would oppose our crusade, then come.
Oh, this is gonna feel weird.
Know that none shall deny us salvation. This place shall be your tomb.
No dings.
I will free us from the wheel.
I will free us from the wheel. Is Viper your favorite DPS? At the moment, I would say yeah. Where my rhyme-kissed blades,
I will suffer no obstacle.
I will suffer no obstacle.
No matter the foe, I will stay the course. Let lightning surge!
Man, Reawaken feels a little awkward without the OGCT follow-ups.
Such is your power. Come forth, my servant of shadow.
Actually,
Pixel dark and hero's blade.
okay, take away my camera.
Liberation.
It's hard to say, Maledictio. The thing is, all 4 tanks have their advantages and disadvantages in this aspect. Both Warrior and Paladin, in different ways, have the capacity to give themselves and their co-tank a thing. Whereas Dark Knight and Dark Knight can do it too with Ablation. Gunbreaker just can't. Warrior only gives itself the healing, but it can give its co-tank the defense. Whereas Paladin and only Paladin can give itself and its co-tank everything, just straight up everything. Oh right, the follow-up explosion. My bad.
Bathe them in black flame.
Bathe them in black flame.
My meteors will extinguish your light. A raging gale to rend you asunder.
Did you ever consider voice acting as a career? I have. But it's really hard to know where to start, Taldemar. But I have.
Look to the heavens for your doom.
Look to the heavens for your doom.
You wretch.
Did he ever free you from the wheel? No, he was supposed to free others from the wheel, I'm pretty sure.
My servant of shadow.
Just funny. When Viper unlocks Ouroboros, they technically lose some of their gauge generation because they spend an extra 3 seconds or so doing that every time they use Reawaken.
A raging
Replace the VA for Albino, Danish Elf Teen. Let lightning surge. That is true, Remove. That is a good point. And that is also something that I've considered.
Look to the heavens for your doom. Wear my rime-kissed blades.
Hey, mages. Hope you're doing well.
This place shall be your tomb.
I mean, if you enjoy the PvP and PvE content enough, mages, then it could be worth it. But I will say, just cold hard truth is that PvP isn't getting that much support or attention in Final Fantasy XIV. So I feel like it's pretty important that you have other things you enjoy in the game aside from PvP content. Otherwise, there's very little point. But if you enjoy the PvE content, it could be worth it. Like me personally, when I got into Final Fantasy XIV, I started skipping cutscenes. It's going to be a long one. But yeah, I have seen some voice actors remove that. What they do is that, for instance, they might, they might put up like a reel of them voice acting in place of, known voices. So like as like some sort of like demonstration reel that they can then send at people when they're trying out for roles. The best you can do, Gustavo, is remember to look at everything. My best advice is try to get better acquainted with your the job that you're playing, so that you don't need to have full focus on that. That way you can use your eyes to look at other things. That was strange, Nox. I didn't see anything on my end, but that's unfortunate and annoying. Erdal had it as well? I didn't see anything on my end, but it might have been because it was so short that YouTube didn't bother to tell me. Zabs, there's a lot of especially bigger companies require that voice actors are part of some association thing. Yeah, that too. And there's also the possibility that a lot of bigger companies would prefer that their voice actors already have accomplished something, right? It should be possible to rewind and get it anyway, remove, unless it completely got lost. But what I was saying was that I started skipping cutscenes super early. Like, my first character was not this one, it was Mikote that started as a gladiator, and the first cutscene, the first solo duty where Thancred appears, I lost interest. Because there was too much exposition, so to speak. So I started skipping. Then, like, the day after I made this character, and And, like, I just started skipping immediately. Like, I had already lost interest, but I bought the game to make this character because when I started playing, you couldn't play Order unless you bought the game. Did you start as Thaumaturge? I started as an Arcanist. Thank you, Rob Gero. But yeah, that would be a good place to start. Have some more like structured, a more structured section specifically to demonstrate the voice acting, and then like apply for things like that. But you'd probably have to be some part of some sort of thing to consistently be able to apply for things. This is Caetsu Chaiji. See, the funny thing is that I'm incredibly creative. So my Mikote had these two names flipped. Just flipped. There was. I deleted the character. Well, that sucks, Af. You're saying the name is up for grabs? Look, if you look up Caetsu on the lodestone, you'll see that there's not that many, but I'm pretty sure Chaiji Caetsu is actually taken on Louis Soir because of a little meme. Yes, it would, mages. It would greatly impact your ping. As my evil twin? Yeah, I suppose so. You know what's really funny, Vivi? A long time ago, like back in Endwalker at least, we looked, someone had made a clip specifically to, like, for instance, for Walk and Talk stream. At that time it was just tea time. Demonstrating that it was possible to do this fight without moving at all. As in, not at all. As in, there were some spread markers that hurt. Was it Eaterit that made it? Fantastic. It's an Eater reference, yes, exactly. A turtle strat? Not quite. At least it's a very different kind of turtle strat. Example of a trial that can be done solo synced. Oh boy. Poor King Thornton. You know what's funny about Cape Westwind is that I have, back before it got reworked to a solo duty, I have had a group where the majority of the raid was actually, like, not synced down. Like, their gear was actually appropriate for the fight. And that meant that, like, half the raid died to a sudden... Well, I suppose it was meant, like, you're meant to just know it, but a sudden, enormous circle AoE. Like, so big that if you started running when you saw it, you might not make it out. And there were also ads coming in and stuff. Normally, the way Cape Westwind played out was that, like, he died before that circle AoE came. Which meant that basically he didn't have enough HP, he basically had the guild test problem. Where some of the bosses in guild tests have things, but they die before they can do something. Chaetsu Chaiji. But yeah, it was a little bit unfortunate. I feel like that's also part of the fun in how people had... Like, there was this meme. With Cape Westwind, for those that never got to experience it, where experienced players would... if they landed in Cape Westwind through, like, Trial Roulette or something, they would start to spam out, like, macro pastes for, like, way more complicated fights and start to talk about positioning and, like, pairs and light parties and put down a ton of markers and stuff to make it look like it's super complicated. And then, like, it finishes really quickly. The best trolling of that ever came out of that was for Preach. For those, some of you may have seen Preach, Preach Gaming. He was, you know, playing through the story somewhat blind to the game and such, and when he reached Cape Westwind, people were like, oh yeah, that is technically, like, the first, like, raid in the game, like, with 8 players, you should really prepare for that. It's gonna be really hard. And he had apparently, like, he had made sure that he had, like, a raid night's worth, he had, like, food ready, drinks ready. He was strapped in. He was locked in for basically savage raiding. And it was done like that. Like, that's basically all you needed to, like, cement it in the history books. Like, that alone was the ultimate troll with that whole story. And to your question, mages, the next major patch should be at the end of the month. In fact, the event that we're playing with tonight, the Mughal Treasure Trove, is something they usually pull out exactly 1 month, or approximately 1 month before major patch drops. And this event started last week. I would also say to the extreme, Thornton, that I think it's challenging. Like, it isn't like a complete pushover. But I do recall that there was that mental roulette where I landed in Thornton Extreme, and about half the party didn't even realize that it was extreme until like halfway through the intermission. Like, I'm just saying. They didn't even notice that, wow, this guy's hitting kind of hard. And we still did it first pull. With a ton of deaths, but we still made it. And yeah, also that, Vivi. Castrum and Praetorium, I would say, is probably a lot more interesting in minimum item level. However, I'm pretty sure I've heard that even back then, the La Habrea fight after the fact wasn't that interesting. It might have been cool. I have heard that it wasn't very interesting. I specifically recall when I got into the game that it was the fight that ended so fast, it was just like, oh, and he's dead. Like, if you actually watched, like, before they made it so you couldn't skip the cutscenes, if you watched the cutscene after Ultima Weapon died, you wouldn't see La Habrea. Minimum item level, no echo, Wanderer's Palace can be a nightmare. Oh, yes. I remember when I started my solo challenge journey, I did I did basically all of the leveling duties at minimum item level. In addition to, you know, playing synced. And then we got to the level 50 post game. And Wanderer's Palace, I believe minimum item level, a healer has like a third of the HP they would have just synced normally. It just says, I wonder what the devs make for this major update, because people just start complaining about Dawntrail. The thing is, people have been complaining about Endwalker, and they're complaining about Dawntrail all the time. We already sort of know what's coming. There's coming a new raid tier, both normal and savage. There's coming supposedly a field operation, and that space thing for crafters and gatherers, I believe. There'll be a new dungeon. Probably going to be a new trial. There's going to be more MSQ stuff where that dungeon and trial would take place in. It's saying nothing on my end, Taldemar, so I don't know. Maybe it's YouTube struggling. OBS says everything is going through fine. Restream is saying everything is going through fine. YouTube is saying everything is going through fine. I have, Buzzy. It's not... like, the thing is, the way the news were described has made it very convoluted. It doesn't... like, it isn't as groundbreaking as people make it out to be. Yoshi P is still... basically director of FF14. Exactly, as Yannick says, the long story short is your GP probably doesn't have to come to as many board meetings. That's it. But that's not a very interesting headline. It's also possible that what Sally says, that nothing's changed. It's just that like they changed the name, the text on his hat. You're now Executive Supreme Cashier Guy. Oh, awesome. Does that come with a raise? No. New duties? Nope. But yeah, as you may have seen, a lot of the people reporting on it exaggerated greatly because what actually happened is not very interesting. Yeah, more responsibility? Yes. It's even more your fault now. Hey, Iron. Hope you're doing well. If we're just casually talking about this and that while going through some Mogtome tasks. From what I can see, we don't have any more 8-man tasks. Alright, Rust. Enjoy your evening. Remove saying, breaking news. Director of multi-million-dollar franchise gets to sleep in for 30 minutes. Back to you. And then we have like a whole like newscast transition with music blaring. Dun 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 dun. And now the weather. If you run out of duties, imagine if everyone just did Leap of Faith. I'm just saying, I like Leap of Faith. Although yesterday, I had exactly an experience of like, I went to the Gold Saucer because I had a card I wanted to hand in. I also wanted to do the mini-cact part. I zone in, and it just hit the moment where a new gate happened, and it was Leap of Faith. So it's just like, forget everything I'm doing and just run over and do the Leap of Faith. And it was like the hardest sylph step, or whatever it's called, I've ever had. It took like 5 or 6 minutes. That was also where I ran into community, I think they were called Lilith? Lilith? In the middle of the run, and then I found Nox and Naomi outside. But yeah, I enjoy Leap of Faith. I just don't really hang out in the Gold Saucer on stream because the background music in the Gold Saucer is one of those weird songs that cause those like auto copyright claims. You can just counterclaim it, but it's really annoying, so I'll just rather not be there. You hear that, Squeenix? Fix it, I guess. Talk with the other company. Tell them to back off. I don't know. Right. Well, it seems like we have one 4-man weekly. So we could if we can slim down to 4 players, we could run Noxus Zmail Darkhold. Anyone that doesn't mind sitting out for that? The classic. The classic. The only thing missing would have been Nox hopping out as well, and in before Nox does it for the meme. The best part is that it always overshoots with one person. This works. Just mute the music and make your view. See, that's actually also what I suggested remove at the start of the stream, that I might do that, but it just feels weird to just have the the ominous silence in the gold source of all places. Go with 4 blue mages? Nah. We wanna have we wanna be well. The thing is, I don't have my blue mage set up for this, and I can't be bothered to do that right now. But what we're going to do is pull big. One day, Alejandro. One day. We're still waiting for worldwide DC travel. One day. Just mumble the theme. That's not quite mumbling. Need a full album. Just a full album of Final Fantasy XIV music with me just going. Just doing that. That's Gold Saucer via the Muppets. Yannick says, I wonder how many of the mobs you actually need to proceed in ARR dungeons. Well, in that case, I have some hilarious news for you about a future video. Although it's not exactly covering everything, but I'm sure you'll find it entertaining when you have that question. I'm pretty sure the answer is unless the mob actually drops a thing, or a door opens when you kill it, the answer is you don't need to kill it. Peaches says, what's everyone's favorite dungeon music? Well, you said dungeon music, so Twinning is definitely up there. Amarat is very high up there for me as well. Everyone there like, are you not just mumbling to the edge right now? No, it's actually the Amarat theme. Mortal Instance. He's a voice actor and a musician. Such talent. Can we make it? Kill him! Bam! Cosmic Melon says, how am I supposed to play Final Fantasy XIV and Wilds at the same time? With great difficulty. I'm not going to do a mega poll here, but we can pull some. Partly because this part of the dungeon is the hardest part of the dungeon to most. So we're going to give it the respect it deserves. That's correct, Zav. It's the jerk anglerfish that causes the problems. That's actually the reason why, if some of you have seen my, from back in Endwalker, I made 2 videos on the subject of the hardest mega pulls in Final Fantasy XIV. In the Dismail Darkhold one, where we actually pulled everything from the start of this section all the way to the boss and the boss in this section, I had a bard in my group specifically so that they could use Warden's PN on me. So that the healer didn't have to stop to do it. Because back then, you know, Ishuna had a cast time. Actually, come to think of it, was I tanking that or was I healing that? I don't even remember. I was tanking. Thank you, Ardell. That was fast. Angry Corn says, what is your least favorite MSQ trial? Oh, MSQ trial. I was about to say, I think we talked about that previously, but that was, I believe, any trial. Least favorite MSQ trial. I think I'll actually go with Thordan there. Yeah. Green says the Chrysalis wins that one for me. See, the thing is, I think of Chrysalis, but every time I think of Chrysalis in that context, I think... I don't think it's bad. I think it's it's pretty unique. It is challenging, which means that I don't dislike it. But Thordan, specifically, actually Bismarck and Thordan are both pretty far down because they both just waste a ton of time on accomplishing nothing. The way these thingies work... Uh-oh. Is that as long as one person is standing on the terminal, we have to wait for Nox to come back. As long as one person is standing on the terminal, it ticks. And 2 players maximizes the speed it ticks at. I actually have a Mythbusters video where I demonstrate this. Uh-oh, I did not mean to pull those. Oh, Nox is back. Then we can do it, and then I don't need to run away anymore. Thank you, Aradel. But yeah, Bismarck and Thordan, and the thing is, like the common thread for those 2 for me is that they both are sort of like nothing burgers in terms of like actual combat. Like not that much is happening. Whereas in the Chrysalis, while there isn't, like, there's a lot of, like, the boss coming and going, which is mildly annoying. The mechanical section of it is actually like, you can wipe. And I'm just saying, a lot of people hate that, oh, you need to use Limit Break at this specific time, or maybe you'll wipe. Oh no, woe is me. Yeah, that means the fight is threatening enough it could kill you. It has the capacity to wipe you, and that has to count for something. Imagine having a trajectory right now. Ow. Cool Jar Jar at home. This boss has a lot of random sudden damage on players, so it is a little scary to have someone low. Cosmic Melon says Titania's fight might be a bit dated. Wow. That's true. How old is Shadowbringers? Anyone ready to feel really old, I guess. Nearly 6 years. Vivi says, I like telling paladins and gunbreakers to invuln right before going into the meteor phase and the shock of minute-long invulns. Well, the way that that intermission works is that when you enter that, like, almost like reverse realm, buffs and debuffs that were on you before you entered has their duration multiplied by, I believe, 10. So if the tank clicks their invuln and enters immediately, they'll get nearly 2 minutes of invuln. Except Dark Knight, because, well, you know. But if you enter immediately as like a DPS or a healer that doesn't have an invuln, that debuff that what's-his-face Nabrialis puts on you when he does the with the tentacles coming out of him, that dot will last 2 minutes or until you exit. But if you run away from the whole, like the rift, the tear that he makes in reality, if you run away from it, it'll try to suck you in, but it will not force you in immediately. So you're supposed to be running away from the tear to run out the dot. When the dot ends, that is actually the exact moment that the tear will force you in. And nothing is happening in there for those like 20 seconds. Nothing. So you, like, there's no benefit to letting yourself get thrown in immediately. So you might as well run away. The only ones where there's no reason to run away is exactly Gunbreaker and Paladin, because they can just mash their invuln and run in. Yeah, you have a dot for 2 minutes. I can't take damage for 2 minutes, so big whoop there, man. Sarah saying it says 5 years of me no longer able to bake without Titania's theme. Nice. Of Gyros says Caetsu Black Mage Guide. For this class, you need to have a basic understanding of the elemental forces that control the world. Wow, imagine if I started like that. And sometimes a mage uses the LB before the rift appears. Sometimes you'll just have a DPS that LBs Nabrialis. But the thing is, I remember in Endwalker at some point, I can't remember the context at all, but I remember it was off stream, but we were like a 7-man pre-made. And we did the Chrysalis. I guess we queued for Trials Roulette and landed in the Chrysalis. The rando used LB on Nabrialis just before the intermission. And we were like a bunch of people going, no, wait, stop! And like, they let it rip. Like, I guess we didn't try to rescue to stop them. We just let it happen, I guess. Now, because we were 7 players that knew what we were doing and expected what we expected, we dealt with the tear with no issue without LB. The problem is that in your average random group, you might not be able to do so. But the funny thing is, the reason why LBing the tear is so crucially important is because, well, it's the Cape Westwind problem over again. I mentioned before, the way Cape Westwind became so easy is that synced with all the crazy gear, you could beat what's his face before a mechanic happened. But the first mechanic that happens, I believe, could kill a DPS like that. Possibly. Meaning that if you just have a Ritterturn, thank you. If you just have a few players in the group that are really lacking, stuff happens. The same thing is true for Chrysalis, where that tear, the reason why the meta strategy is LB the tear is because if you don't and the fight drags on, the fact everyone ran in with the dots up will start to tire out the healers potentially, and all the meteors will start to overwhelm the group that did no preparation. Like, basically, Nabrialis gives you 10 times longer buffs for a reason. The Dragoon is supposed to click Lance Charge before they enter, so they get that damage buff for the whole thing. The Bard is supposed to click Battle Voice. Well, technically, I believe Battle Voice had a completely different effect back then, but the Bard is supposed to click Battle Voice before they enter, so that everyone gets mega long Battle Voice. So on, like, you're supposed to have all those buffs for the whole thing. If you don't use that, and also Raging Strikes, true. You're supposed to have all those effects. And your tanks are supposed to be basically unkillable, so they can just take all those meteors. But if you just go, nah, it doesn't matter, and just run in and don't try to flee to get rid of the debuff, then it's going to be really hard. Unless you skip it, which is what you're doing by LB3ing it. It even paused Enochian? I don't know. I never checked. Hey Pikachu, hope you're doing well. Malediction says, my favorite part is the DPS who runs around trying to find the tear, despite the tear always appearing where the first meteor hits. I didn't know that. I've never seen the tear spawn. I've never seen it spawn. How would you know that? How would you learn that? By either someone saying it or by seeing it happen. Never seen it happen, and no one mentioned it to me. I didn't know. So I would be the DPS running around like a crazy person looking for the tear. No, that's a good point, Sally. Before Stormblood introduced gauges, yes, Stormblood introduced job gauges, everyone. Astral Fire and Umbral Ice were buffs, which meant you could read what they did off the tooltip. Well, vaguely, as you know, buffs tend to be not very accurate with or not very detailed in their descriptions. You don't say, no mercy. Marcus says, what tear are we talking about? In the duty... The Chrysalis with Nabrialis, you know, he disappears and then like you have to run into orbs, blah blah blah. At some point, he'll force you into this opposite world where everything is white. At some point, a tear in reality appears that you have to kill. That's the tear we're talking about. Remove says, do pots work for that? I think they do. But I haven't bothered. Right? I haven't bothered. But yeah, that's the funny thing, is that I think part of what makes Nabrialis such an annoying, quote-unquote, fight for a lot of people is that he's perfectly in the sweet spot of he's easier than Earth's Fount, apparently, enough that he goes in the trial roulette and is MSQ, but he's hard enough that not knowing what to do can be a problem, yet again he's easy enough that it's kind of alright if just a few people know what to do, which means that he's usually beatable in the first try, so long as the limit break goes on the tear. And I've talked about this before. If you're doing a duty for the first time, and there's a mechanic that... So he's mid-core. You're doing a duty for the first time. There are mechanics that you have no idea what to do. Like, you don't understand the mechanics, but the boss died. The probability of you going, guys, I have a question. What was that mechanic before? Is really small. Yes, there are players that will ask. There are players curious enough that they'll be like, can anyone explain what this mechanic? I didn't get it. Like, some will ask, but the vast majority of players will either not care at all or will be like, well, I guess I'll figure it out next time I get this duty, if I ever will, and just move on. Which means that every single mechanic in the Nabrialis fight that are beatable in the first try will simply not be explained. For instance, I have never needed the information that the tear appears where the first meteor strikes, so I never got told. I reacted fast enough that no one noticed that I didn't know, or cared that I didn't know, or maybe they didn't know either. Just saying, the thing with you being able to run away from the initial black hole thing to run out the debuff, most people, like a lot of people go, there's a dot? What? I didn't even notice. And a lot of people will also be like, oh, you can run away from that? I didn't even know. And also a lot of people will actually be like, oh, it increases the duration of my buffs? That's awesome, I didn't even know. Like, all of the things about that phase are rarely explained, because if you just LB3 that tear in reality, nothing else matters, as long as the tanks are intercepting the meteors. The best mix-up is the no mix-up mix-up. Reen says, even with all the Chrysalis wipes I've been through, I probably see more wipes on Leviathan from someone turning on the generator too early. I feel like I've seen more wipes to it being turned on too late. But yeah, I get what you mean. Sally says, respecting it is why it's easy for me. At least that's how I feel about it. Exactly. That's also something that is pretty funny, is that people will go into a fight like that and ignore mechanics if they don't have to do something. and then complain that it is beatable without doing a thing, even though it's easier if you do the thing. Like, I'm just saying, it's pretty funny that. Cat says, to be fair, why would you, without any prior knowledge, press your damage cooldowns when there is no target? Absolutely true. Correct. Exactly. How in the world would you figure out that when you go through that black hole, your buff's durations get multiplied by 10? And how in the world would you know that the debuff does that too? You might not notice you have a debuff until you're already in there and just be like, oh, that debuff is just 2 minutes. That's just how it is. Fine. Like, how would you know? Which is exactly what I mean. Like, there are some jobs that would just happen to have a buff running when the phase changes. And they might notice that, huh, why do I have Medica 2 for 2 minutes? And if they wipe, they might go, guys, I have a question. How is it possible that I had a 2-minute healing over time effect on me that was called Medica 2? I'm pretty sure it doesn't last that long. And then someone will go, oh, well, you see, all buffs get their duration multiplied by 10 in there. And then you go, oh, so I should be using my big buffs just before entering. Yes, you should. But, again, as long as you LB3 the tear, it doesn't matter. Cosmic Melon says, may we see this trial in action? I haven't done it and it sounds pretty cool. Sure. We have a bunch of people here. Anyone up for a quick chrysalis? You can come on over to me if you want to do chrysalis with me for a little demonstration. Oh. We need 2 more. One more. Can we test the podskate getting extended too? Yes, we can. Naomi, Marcus, either one of you want to go? Hey, Shackman, hope you're doing well. I'll do a Reddit check when we get in. I guess this is also an easy way to go over the mechanics of the fight, just in general. His tank buster is Spark, and the way he escalates it is that throughout the fight he'll use double or triple before using Spark. And triple Spark with no defensive cooldowns can actually just kill a tank from full. Like, that there was double Spark with Rampart. Here, you're supposed to intercept, like run into the orbs, but if you run into the same colored orb twice, it'll hurt a lot. If you alternate them, and these orbs are a little different, turning into ads. If you run into the same orb twice, they hurt a lot, but if you alternate what you run into, you'll reset the debuff and get the opposite debuff, making it a little bit easier. Or a lot easier, even. So that's why you'll see that people will run towards an orb and then run away from it the next time. Because they don't want the same one twice. And that's pretty much phase 1. Like, this whole phase in a nutshell. He'll also teleport around a lot. Also true, you get knockbacked if you try to take the same one twice. And you will successfully take it, though. So, like, it's not too bad. And here comes the triple version. And more orbs. But yeah, also true, you could get knocked into an extra orb. Uh-oh. Oh. It got resolved. That is why we really want to make sure we deal with the shadow sprites when they spawn, so they don't get to do that cone from beyond. That is simply unavoidable if you're on the other end. And yeah, the punishment for letting orbs through here is that the explosion there will do more damage. There it is, see the dot? And there's the tear. So you run away. And you well, actually, this might be a problem for the buffs we have already activated. Yep, 4-minute pot. I forgot to use No Mercy, though. I have a 4-minute strength pot. Hey, Zarian. Hope you're doing well. There's the first tear. As I said, use LB on it, and then, like, you saw there were 2 meteor spawns all the way over in Narnia. And Cat had a 2-minute moon flute debuff. Wait, did you have the negative one? You just pacified for 2 minutes? Narrative had 1-minute barrage. The sad part with those is how, like, that just gets spent. But yeah, that's Chrysalis. It's not that hard. But you just have to do the thing. If we didn't have LB3 there, the way it would have played out is that all of the DPS would have continued to be attacking the tear while the tanks run around intercepting the meteors. And because they both have invuln, hopefully, it doesn't hurt. They just keep intercepting them until it's fine. And there will usually be enough meteors for 2 players exactly. Seraph says, remember when Astrologian was the one extending buffs? I remember. Well, technically, Nabrialis did it first. Cosmic Melon says, this is pretty neat. I'm trying to get comfortable with trials and eventually raids. I'm just terrified of dying to a mechanic, especially as a tank. Well, the thing is, the only way to learn is to try. And one of the best ways to learn is to fail. And I feel like most players will be understanding that it's difficult. Like, that it's not trivial to do all these things, so they'll be okay with you dying. Oh yeah, that's also a good point. You could use sprint before entering to... The reason why I didn't get no mercy off was because I realized, oh, I have to pop everything, and I waited too long, so like I started popping everything when there was like 3 seconds left to pop everything. Matthew says, if death wasn't an option, we would have Rays. I guess we wouldn't have Rays, actually. Oh, the good news, Cosmic Melon, is that you will rarely die a lot of times. You'll rarely die a lot of times. But genuinely, like, if we go back to what I was just saying, the reason why so many players have no idea how Chrysalis works is because you don't wipe on it. You don't wipe on it. But if you did, people would start to, like, figure things out. They'd start to look at, like, how the things work and explain it. But as long as you don't wipe on it, as long as there's no problems, no one cares. And you'll just, like, figure it out next time, or you won't. Maybe, maybe not. But yeah, wait, wasn't? Oh no, that was not a Mogtome thing, was it? Oh well. Still, interesting demonstration. But speaking of which, I feel like we got everything covered. For those that might have come into the stream a bit late, if you're actually curious about the whole explanation of how the Mughal Treasure Trove and stuff worked, I started the stream with that, and you can rewind the stream to watch that bit, or it'll become a VOD when the stream ends, so you can catch all that if you want the explanation. I specifically started with that because I had a feeling it would be hard to find if I, like, did other stuff for an hour and a half and then explained it. So if you're curious how the, like, Mughal Treasure Trove works and what to look for and such, it's there. And I can say that there were also comments adding extra tidbits here and there as I was explaining, so that can also be handy. Yeah, the problem is, of course, also removed that if you wipe for a specific reason, people might explain that reason. Or maybe they'll just go to themselves, I need to be more careful about that. And then just fix it for you without saying a word. So you could easily wipe multiple times and still not be explained what to do. I usually, if we wipe to something, will explain the thing that we clearly wiped to, like what the problem was. But sometimes I'll just be quiet because sometimes people want to figure it out themselves. Like how... I think I've explained this in a video at least once, possibly more than once. But how do you learn to learn fights with your eyes? By being allowed to learn the fight with your eyes. As in, if you have an excessively helpful mentor explain a, I would say, casual difficulty fight, before you have a chance to pull at all, then you're getting robbed of the opportunity to figure out how the fight works on your own. Or at least lose the opportunity to be given the chance to try, because they just explained it to you. It's like being given a present and then someone just comes in and goes, it's a Batman figure. And then it is. Thanks. You see, coming from Destiny, one person messing up a mechanic could and would wipe the whole party in a raid. In Final Fantasy XIV, casual fights, most of the time, one person dying is not a big deal. Especially not if it's... especially not if it's a DPS. A lot of the time, it's no big deal if a tank dies, because there's two in, raid contexts. If a healer dies, it's a lot more catastrophic, especially if there's not a summoner or, in higher levels, a red mage to, cover as well. So if you're afraid of dying, I would say healer is the most dangerous role to pick, because there's only, for sure, 2 of you. And in a dungeon, if you die as the healer, there's a very real chance that at that point, you're not getting back up. And if the rest of the party can't do it without you, it's a wipe. So, that's the scary part. And Addiction says, I usually try to let a wipe happen once on mechanics, and then the second time through, if it happens, offer to explain. Then if it's a problem point, then I do this. Then I do this is how to solve it. Remove says, that's part of the reason why people give spoiler warnings before level capstone fights. Yeah, I sometimes do that. I usually do it until the duty has had some time to, for people to have had a chance to see it. But most of the time, I don't go into deep detail in my mentor roulette videos about a fight. Unless it's an extreme, I'll sometimes explain exactly how the fight works. But a lot of the time, I'll just, give this thing was a problem and explain that. Which of course means that the rest of the fight is still unmentioned. But that is a good point. But yeah, speaking of all of that, I think this is a good time to wrap it up. So, I can figure out all my notes here. If you enjoyed this particular stream, it helps me a lot if you leave a like on it here on YouTube. That tells the algorithm this was an enjoyable stream and you'd like other people to enjoy it as well. So thank you so much for the support. And if you'd like to be part of the Discord community server, there's a link in the chat right there. There you will find the weekly schedule where you can see what else is coming up in the coming days. And there's an announcement room with links to videos and streams when they come out. And if you grab the reminder role in the role assignments room, you'll get a notification whenever I post these things, as well as an extra one around 15 minutes before stream starts, so you can catch it right when it goes live. And if you'd like to be part of the replaying, rewinding, if you'd like to support the channel even more directly, you can become a member of the channel, you can gift memberships, you can use the super chat system, or if you don't like any of that, there's also a Ko-Fi link in the chat that Aradel posted right there. It all helps support me and the channel directly so that I can focus on doing stuff like this with all of you. So thank you so much for the support. But that'll be all from me tonight. So good night, good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are in the world. And I hope to see you all very soon. Bye bye.